Welcome in the 8th lecture devoted to waves and optics. So here we are going to talk about geometrical optics and images. So this is part 1. Here we are going to first remind you with the ray model of light and reflection. Then we are going to talk about plane mirrors and then introduce spherical mirrors. And then in part 2 we will see refracting surfaces and lenses. References are, as usual, Fundamentals of Physics from Halliday and co-workers, Physics from Jean Colli, and the free books available at OpenStax and Physics, University Physics Volume 3. So why geometrical optics? So it is, of course, you have many examples in everyday life like these. So you may use this in your research, maybe astronomy, photography, etc. And of course, your mobile phone. Don't forget your phone has a lens in it. And sometimes your PC also. So the ray model of light, we've seen it in the previous lectures, but let's just state what the approximations are. So light travels in a straight line. Light propagates in straight line as long as the distances are much higher than the wavelengths of light. So it's typically the case for visible light, because visible light, by now you should know that the typical wavelength for visible light is like half a micrometer. So basically from about 0.8 micrometer for red light to 0.4 micrometer for blue light. So it's quite easy in everyday life to have some distances that are much greater than a micrometer. All right. Time reversal principles. So the path followed by light does not depend on the direction. So we've seen this also. The path of the light during reflection and refraction is given by Snell's law. Okay. We introduced this in the previous lecture. So this is a rough surface, and this is known as diffuse reflection. Okay, of course, at any point here you have a specular reflection for each ray. So this one will reflect with the same angle with respect to the normal at that location. So the normal at that location is shown here. So this angle is the same as this one. At this location, normal. Let's take another one. This one is not so nice. That one. Okay, you see the normal is perpendicular to the surface. So that ray will be reflected in this way. Okay. So this is represented here. So that's why you can see for example, that page. If the light reflects on that page of paper, which is very rough, you will see an image of that light from whatever angle you are looking at, like illustrated here. But in this case, if you have a very smooth surface, the rays will all reflect at the same angle, and you will see this light only if you are here. If you are here, you will not see that light. If the rays coming out of the light of this lamp are all parallel in this way. Of course, if they are emitting a little bit everywhere, some rays will eventually, for example, if that lamp, let's take the pen, emits, let's say, also some rays like this ray will probably go into your eye and you will see the lamp. Okay. So normal lamps, most lamps have some kind of diverging property here. So that's why you can, in general, you see the lamp from a wide angle. Okay, so but the approximation of geometrical optics is we have only flat surfaces. Okay, so we deal only with specular reflection. We will need also so the laws of reflection and refraction. So for reflection, it's very easy. The angle of the reflected angle is equal to the incident angle, and that one, the refracted angle, is given by Snell's law. So let's look here at a flat mirror to begin with. So it is the most simple device in geometrical optics. So this is a mirror. Here you have an object. So basically, how can you make a mirror? You use an extremely smooth surface, and you put, for example, a thin layer of a metal like aluminum or silver. Silver is the preferred metal for reflection. So so you know that let's take that object here, and if you are here, you will see that object as if it were there here. So how do we find this image? Let's take one particular point of that object, let's say P, and we look at so that let's say P emits rays in all directions, but only a selected number will intersect your eye, and this defines the object. Okay, what you see. So what are the rays that actually intersect your eye? They are we can find out them using the property of reflection. Okay, so we can see that this ray, so the one on the left side, will reflect here and intersect your the upper part of your eye, and the other one, which is the lower one here, will intersect here and intersect with the lower part of your eye. So all the rays in between will intersect your eye. And what you see, so you see these rays coming. So the object is in fact the intersection of all these rays coming into your eye. So these are the extreme rays, upper part of your eye, lower part of your eye. And so let's see where they intersect. So the real rays do not intersect, okay, because they diverge from this point. Okay, but if you continue these lines in this imaginary world, these rays are imaginary. They are in some sense virtual, not real. But still you continue them and you see that they intersect here at point Q. So the image of point P is point Q. Okay, so this is this is a general property of geometrical optics. To find the object, you look at where the rays, after they passed the optical device, where they intersect. Okay, and they intersect here. So this is an imaginary point. It's not a real intersection. Okay, these rays do not exist in real. They are virtual. But still, this is the position where you see the object. Okay, so this is the image. You can then take another, for example, this one, and using exactly the same trick, you can find that the image is Q prime here. Okay. So using basic geometry, you can see that in fact this distance, so distance BQ is equal to distance BP. Okay, so you see the object as if it were at the same distance from the mirror as it is in reality, but on the other side. Okay, so this is called the image. Alright, so this image is called a virtual image. Alright, because it's not real. It's not a real image. So this is also a general definition of virtual image. You see that the image would not appear on paper or film placed at the location of the image. If you put whatever here, a piece of paper or whatever, no real rays go to that location. Therefore, you do not have a real image at that location. So this is a virtual image. Okay. So in this slide we have a more a better definition of a mirror. So it's a surface that can reflect a beam of light in one direction. Okay. So for example, you take this point O, you have a beam of light here. It is reflected in one direction because it is smooth. The interface is smooth. So this is not the case for example, a concrete wall. Okay. Okay, so looking at at point O here, you see that okay, let's say it's a point source, so it emits in all directions, and you have every time your theta incident is equal to the theta reflected, and with respect to the normal. And so if you then look at the intersection of all the reflected rays, you will find that they all converge to the same point I, which is the image of point O by the mirror. So this particular fact, that any ray originating from O, from the object, and intersecting the mirror, seems to originate from I, this is called stigmatism. This is common to all optical devices, okay, not only the mirror. I mean, those, it's a particular class, okay, of optical components. So in this case, I is virtual, doesn't exist for real, but in some other case, for a lens, for example, you may have that I is real. Okay, so the stigmatism, the point where you have stigmatism is may be real. Okay. Okay. All right. So here we are going to see two important things. The first one is you only need two rays to find out the image of a point, of an object, of a point object. For example, let's take that example first. Your object is here, the point, and you all the rays intersecting your eye are in between these two rays, extreme rays. So you see that then we are looking at the intersection of the rays coming into your eye to find the image. But you see that because there is stigmatism, all the rays converge at a single point. So you need only 2 points, 2 rays. Right? So only 2 rays is enough to find your point. So now, let's say you have your object, you have your mirror, and you want to find your image. Which rays do you select? So now you have the right to think and be smart and not choose this configuration, right? Because this is difficult to write, especially if you need a very precise drawing to find your image. But if you use this case, actually it's very easy. So first of all, you see that this ray is incident normal to the mirror, so it will be reflected in the same direction. Okay, so it will be just like that. So you know, and you continue in the virtual world. So this virtual ray, you continue it. So your let's take the pen, and make it green. Your image is somewhere on this line. Then you take another one. So this indeed you can take it, it's arbitrary. You take a nice one, easy to draw, and let's make it blue this time. Alright, so it is reflected, so you have these two angles are the same, and you know therefore that your image will be on that line, and they intersect here. So you have your point. Alright, so now what is the distance? We have already said before that this distance, so OB and BI are the same, but let's show it. So you have in this, let's look at these triangles. So it's quite easy. This, you know, AB, and you know that angle. So therefore this angle is also theta, this angle is also theta, because this is common to both triangle. You take for example the tangent. The tangent theta will be that divided by that equals that divided by that, therefore that equals that. Therefore this distance is the same as this distance. Alright? So IB equal OB. Now it's not that easy as that, so there are some conventions in different books. So typically in undergraduate books, especially those written in America, they have a given convention, some sign conventions. So we have to use this. So there are ways to not have to deal with the signs and just use algebraic functions in geometrical optics, but in these books they use signs and conventions, so we have to deal with that. So what is the convention in this case? It is this. So I is equal minus P. So P is a positive number. It is the distance of the object to the optical component. And this is true for any kind of optical component, not only for a mirror. Okay. So you usually call that P. And the image, so the position of the image from the optical component is usually called I. And now the sign given to I is in this case negative. Why? It's because in this case for virtual images I will be taken negative. Okay, so object distances P are taken positive. In general, we will see one particular case where it's not, but in general, object distances P are usually your object is real. Okay, so it's positive, and image distances will be negative when they are virtual, which is the case now. Alright, so this is our formula for a plane mirror. Let's now look at an extended object, because so far we have just seen a point. Okay, so the image of a point is a point. So for example, if you take the base of this arrow, it will be a point here. And if you take, so let's take this arrow as an object. You can take the tip here, point O, it will be, so the image will be point I here. And any point here will have an object, will have an image by this mirror, which will be just symmetric with respect to the mirror. So the image of that large object, extended object, will be an extended object also. And in the case of the mirror, it will be the same size. It will, the height of this arrow will be the same. Okay. The image height will be the same as the object height. And again, any point if can be found by using just two rays. For example, for point O, you may find this one, which goes like this, and again that perpendicular to the mirror, like this, so the intersection is here. So this animation shows just that. When you want to find the image of an object, you have two very convenient rays for a plane mirror. You just take one ray intersecting the mirror normally, so perpendicularly, so in the red one here. So the dashed line here is a virtual ray, and then you just take another one, whatever. So here this was defined at probably the 0, but in the vertical direction, but you don't need to put any line here. But okay, so it's easy to draw this line and to find out your intersection. So mirrors are very simple objects, but they can create very tricky images. So for example, looking at this, this is an object, so it could be someone, and there are two mirrors. Like this. So you have, so let's look for the object, the image of this object. So you have two mirrors, so you have two images. So the first one is okay, the symmetric with respect to mirror 1, so it is here. And the second is here, image 2. Okay, don't mind the colors. So you have two images, but in fact you must also consider the that image 2 becomes an object for mirror 1, and therefore we'll have an image 3 here, and this distance is the same as this distance. Okay, so this is not easy to see, but if you look at the rays, so that one, so for example, to make image 2, you have this ray, let's say, so reflected by this, but that ray will also intersect mirror 1, therefore it will have an image for mirror 1, and that ray is coming from there. The object for mirror 1 is image 2, alright? So, and it is reflected like this. So if you take another ray, so the ray that is, remember we need two rays, so the other ray would be one perpendicular, so that one. So they intersect here, so they also intersect up here. So that ray and this ray intersect here, you see? And this is, you have an infinite number of images in this case. So you may have seen that maybe in some movies, or even yourself in sometimes in the bathrooms, in some place where a very large bathroom, when you have mirrors on one side and also mirrors on the other side. If you look on one side, you may see the infinite yourself because of multiple reflections in the mirrors. Here, let's see what happens when you have two perpendicular mirrors, as shown here, and you have an object close to the mirrors, like this object. So it has a first image, so image 1 by mirror 1, it has image 2 by mirror 2, and in fact there is another image, so image 1, 2, over there. So in fact there is a problem in that image. So I took that particular figure from OpenStax volume 3, the free book, but this is wrong. This is not the proper position, and you can see actually that these rays are not correct, especially that one. So follow this one. you see that it is reflected too much towards the mirror 1. It should be more around here. Okay, and this would put the image closer here. And it's easy to see where the image should be, because, so I'm going to use a pen. Okay, so in fact, you start with the object, you get image 2 by mirror 2. That image also has, so you take that image 2 as an object for mirror 1, and the image of that green image 2 is, by definition, the symmetric with respect to that green line, so it will be around here. So this is a proper position for image 1, 2, and that image will also be come from image 1. So image 1 is the image of object with respect to mirror 1, but you can take image 1 as the object and look at its image with respect to mirror 2, and it will be also the symmetric of image 1 with respect to that line here, and it is the same position here. Okay, so this is not the proper position, it is a proper position is here. Let's now introduce spherical mirrors. So they are just spherical instead of being flat. They are characterized by their center of curvature R and concavity. So they are spherical, therefore they are made of a sphere. Therefore there is a curvature. All right. So this curvature R would be, let's say, in this case, this distance R from this point to the center here. And concavity, so your real world is on the left side, so this one is convex because it has this shape, and this one is concave. Okay, so it looks like a cave, that's why it's called concave. Okay, so in general your real world is on the left side and the virtual world is on the right side. Alright, so when you have a ray incident on such a spherical mirror, you use again Snell's laws. So in this case, for reflection, you have to draw the normal to the tangent of this curve. So the normal to the tangent, and you just the angle of reflection should be the same as the angle of incidence. So for a convex mirror, you have kind of divergence of the rays, but for a concave mirror, they converge towards some zone here, close to the what we call the optical axis of that component. So we are going to define this vocabulary like the optical axis. These are examples of real spherical mirrors. So in shops, in particular, you have this kind of convex mirrors because it allows the clerk or someone in the shop to monitor, to look at the whole shop just by looking at this kind of mirror. So of course it deforms the reality, but if you just need to look to see what's going on, it's enough. This is convex mirror. This is a concave mirror. So it's a big one. You see, it's put on the floor, so you see some wheels here. And something interesting is happening here. So first of all, you see that it's probably a classroom, so you see some seats here, and some stairs, and looks like the roof here, the ceiling, and this is the floor, so it is inverted. The image that you see in this mirror is inverted. In this case it was not inverted, and in both cases you have deformation of reality. It's not exactly like what you see. So this is another example. So this is again something in a shop, but you have that in the streets also, to look at some intersections or in some sharp turns. You have these convex mirrors, and this is a concave mirror again. So that one is interesting because in this case we can see that the image is not inverted. So something will be going on for concave mirrors. In some case you have inverted images, and in some case non-inverted images. Alright, so let's look at the image of an object by a spherical mirror. So let's look first when the object is very far away. So for example this tree, and we have this mirror here. So we here make an approximation. Because this tree is very far from the mirror, the rays that intersect the mirror can be considered as being parallel. Okay, so you ignore the small angle that's left here, and you consider the rays as being essentially parallel. So we are in this configuration, parallel rays intersecting the mirror. So now we use Snell's law for reflection, and we find out, to our surprise maybe, that they do not intersect at the same point. So these far from this is called the optical axis, the symmetric line. Far from that optical axis we have intersection here with that one, for example. This one is reflected in the same direction as the incident. And for example, one close to the optical axis, for example, this one will intersect there. So there is a whole range of what we call focus points. So parallel rays striking a concave spherical mirror do not intersect or focus. This is called focus. When all points focus, so converge to the same point, it's the focus point at precisely a single point. And this is therefore you do not have stigmatism. Remember, we introduced that for plane mirrors. So spherical mirrors do not exhibit stigmatism. Therefore, the image of a point will not be a point in space. Okay, it will be some kind of line in this case. So this is a defect. In fact, in the optical world, we call that a defect because usually we want the image to be a point. Okay, the image of a point should be a point. So this is a defect, and it is referred to as a spherical aberration. So aberration is all kind of things that the problems in optics. So okay, this is an spherical aberration is an example of geometric aberration. We have also if your focus point depends on the wavelength, therefore on the color, it will be known as chromatic aberration. Alright, so our image is not sharp. So notice that we will see just shortly that parabolic mirrors, however, exhibit perfect stigmatism. So we'll see that soon. Okay, so you can see this is a kind of zoom, so you can see again that problem. And you see the problem is increasing when the rays are getting farther away from that optical axis. Okay, because when you take rays that are close to that optical axis, for example, this one focuses there, this one focuses here, so it's not that far. Okay, so it's not too bad. But when you are far away, up there, it becomes very far away from that point. Okay, so the problem increases when you get away from that symmetric line, which is called the optical axis. Yeah, actually, it's written here. So this is one. Another problem is when the rays are not parallel to that optical axis. So in this case, they make an angle with that optical axis, and you see that in fact so if you take all the rays, that one will come here, intersect the optical axis here, that one there. So all in all, you will have such a kind of image. Okay, so okay, we will call that the focal plane. We will define a focal plane later. So you see that the image is roughly distributed on some surface here, rather than on at a single point. So this is a so-called chromatic aberration. So it's a strange name, coma, coming from the Latin, a Latin word. All right, so let's look at what happens. Let's look at the difference between a spherical and a parabolic mirror. So here it's just the function. So this is a circle, a piece of a circle here, and this one is a parabola, so centered at the same point here at 0. So we see that both of them are quite similar for small distances from that line, which is in our case the optical axis. So not far from the optical axis, a parabola and looks like the same as a sphere. Okay, until roughly this point. So that explains why when the rays are not far from the optical axis, we have a nice focus point. So one approximation of geometrical optics will be to focus only to, focus is, do not confuse with the focus point, is to just consider these rays that are parallel to the optical axis and close to that parallel axis. So we are dealing with rays in this range. Okay, so this is this shows all what we said. So this is our spherical mirror with even with rays far from the optical axis. So you see you have a distribution of points here. This is a parabolic mirror. So you have studied probably a parabola in mathematics. You know they have focus points, so-called. I think it's also called focus points in mathematics, like ellipsoidal curves also. And so all the rays actually intersect a single point. So there is stigmatism for parabolic mirrors. And we've seen that when the rays are close to the optical axis, the parabola and the mirror are almost the same. So this is represented in this drawing for what we call a small spherical mirror. So we just look at some a piece of the mirror close to the optical axis. Okay. And in this case, we can, to first approximation, say that we have stigmatism. So why we study spherical mirrors and just not only parabolic mirrors? Because it's cheaper, especially for common use, for everyday use. It's cheaper to make spherical mirrors rather than parabolic mirrors. Of course, parabolic mirrors are used when you really need the precision and you don't care much about the price, or you can afford it you really need the precision. So astronomy, these two cases, or okay, this could be maybe parallel, but this could be actually a spherical shape, depending on the price you put on the dish here to get. So the signal is concentrated, is reflected here to that point, which is the focus point. Okay, so we've seen until now rays intersecting. So coming from very far away, parallel rays intersecting a mirror and focusing at a given point. But remember the reversibility of light, the time reversibility. So the reverse is also true. So if you have some rays of light originating from a focus point here, it will reflect such that the beam will be a parallel beam. A beam made of parallel rays, like this. So this is, for example, used in cars or any kind of projector. You put your source, your light source, at the focus point here, and then you get a parallel beam of light. Let's summarize the approximations related to spherical interfaces. Spherical mirrors in particular. So these are called this is called the Gauss approximation. So stigmatism is obtained for small objects centered on the central axis. So remember, we have to be not so far from the central axis, or also sometimes called optical axis. Okay. So central, you see why it is called the central axis, because it is a symmetry line actually. And rays from the object intersecting the spherical interface make small angle with the central axis. So these angles are small. Okay. So basically we define, usually we call C the distance from the central axis to the mirror when the distance is the radius of the mirror, or so it's the center of the circle in some sense, of the sphere. And F is for the focus point. Let's find out the position of that point F. So, considering CFB triangle, in fact, because theta is very small, you can say that theta is almost 0. So in such a case, if theta equals 0, you have CF equal FC, okay, here equal FB, okay, because theta is extremely small, and FB is also equal to FA, and it is equal because, again, because CB equal R, then this is half of it, so it is R divided by 2. Okay, remember theta is almost 0. Alright, so FA equal R divided by 2. And this is called the focal length. The focal length. Okay, it's in this case a positive number. And the focal, we call it F usually, and in this case it is R divided by 2. So let's find out where these focal points are for different types of spherical mirrors and how to find them. So this is a case of a concave mirror. So to find the focus point, we send rays parallel to the central axis. So for example this one, and we know that it will intersect the central axis at the focus point, which we write as F. Okay. So in this case, so this we will call that R, this distance, which represents the radius, and this we will call that F. and this is a real focus point. It is the real rays will intersect that point. And for a convex mirror, you see that if we send rays parallel to the central axis, they will be reflected like that. So they are kind of diverging. But if you continue the lines like this in the virtual world, you will find they intersect at the focus point, and this focus point is virtual. And your R is also virtual. Actually, it is located here. Let's find the image of a point of an object by a concave mirror. Alright, so we have, let's say here is our object. So again, remember, we just need two rays to find out, because we have stigmatism, we just need two rays to find out the image of one point. So let's take that point. So now, very important, again, you have to be smart in the way you select your two rays. So for a spherical mirror, you have two kind of smart choices, and one is universal to all optical component. So this is the one that is universal. This is the one that is specific to spherical mirrors. So let's start with that one. So you take two rays, so easy rays. So one easy is to of course start from here and go to the here, the intersection of the central axis with the mirror. So it's easy because you see that it will be the reflected ray will be symmetric with respect to the central axis. Another one is to take a ray intersecting the C, the center of curvature, because you know that this, by definition, this line is perpendicular to the tangent of the circle. So it will be reflected in the same direction, and you just have the intersection of the two rays is your the image of that point. So image of point B is point E here, and the image of point A will be point D. So your image AB here, the image of object AB will be DE here. All right. Another set of smart rays is shown here. So this is the one you should remember very well, because it is used for any kind of optical component. So first, you take a beam, a ray that is parallel to the central axis, like this one. You know that this ray will focus, so will intersect the central axis at F. Okay, so that's an easy ray. The other one, it is a kind of it is using the time reversibility. So it's an opposite ray. In fact, if you take a ray that is intersecting that focus point, you know that it will emerge from the mirror as a parallel ray, as a ray parallel to the central axis. Alright, so principle of reversibility, because if you take that second ray and you go the opposite way, you will be parallel to the central axis and then intersect the focus point. Okay, so the intersection of these two rays is here, and you find the same image as using this choice. Okay, so this should be your choice of smart rays. Okay, taking one ray parallel to the central axis, intersecting F, and one ray intersecting F, and which emerge parallel to the central axis. Let's look now at a convex mirror. So it's exactly the same. So you can choose a set of rays that is specific to a spherical mirror. So if you take a ray that is intersecting the central axis with the mirror, here it is easy to design that reflected ray, because these angles are the same. And if you take a ray that is intersecting C, like this, it should be reflected in the same direction. So the only difference is here that the real rays do not intersect. So you need to go in the virtual world and continue these lines, so the dashed lines here in the virtual world, and the image is where they intersect. So the image of that top row is here. So this is the image of your object. So it's a virtual image. So the most conventional choice that you should better choose is this one. So again, you take a parallel ray, so it is parallel ray, this one, and it is reflected such that this line should intersect F. Of course, it does not intersect F in the real world, but it will do in the virtual world. Okay, in this way. And another, so you take a ray that is intersect, so from the object, the point that you choose, to F. So it will be this one. So we don't. Okay, let's write in green. So it is this ray. It would intersect F. Okay, and it is reflected parallel to the central axis in this way. And so okay, you have now your two rays, this one and this one, and they intersect in the virtual world here. So this is your image, and it is a virtual image in this case. This slide summarizes the choice of rays that you can use to find out the image of an object from spherical mirrors. So again, here you have the rays that are specific to spherical mirrors, and this set of rays that are universal to any kind of optical component, and you should it's a good practice to choose these rays. Let's look at an animation. So this drawing shows an object here and a spherical mirror. So this is a convex spherical mirror, and it shows two rays. So they choose the ray going through C, that is reflected in the same direction, and a ray parallel to the central axis and which converge to the focus point. So in that case, your image is here. It is a virtual image because it is on the opposite side of the mirror in the virtual world. So when we change, we can here change the position of the object. So from very far away to very close to the mirror. So you see that we always have basically the same thing. The image is oriented in the same way, up, and so as your object gets closer to the mirror, your virtual image also gets closer to the mirror and gets bigger. Alright, so that's all. Let's now look at the case of a concave spherical mirror. So we have here the object, our mirror. You see that the central axis or optical axis can also be called principal axis. There are many names. Alright, so the image is here. So again, we use one ray that intersects the central axis and is going that way, and another ray parallel to central axis and going through the focal point. Okay, so let's change the position. So now it is, you see that the object is real. It is because you have intersection of real rays here, and it is inverted and smaller than the object. Let's get closer. So as we get closer to the center of curvature, the image gets also closer to the center of curvature and gets bigger, still inverted but bigger. So let's look at what is happening when we are exactly, so almost, okay, at the center of curvature. So now we have the same height but inverted and still real. So let's continue. So now when we are in between the center of curvature and the focal point, we have a real image inverted, and now it's bigger. The height is larger than the original object. So let's continue. So no, same story between center of curvature and focal point. So when we get very close to the focal point, you see that our image becomes very far away, and actually when we get at the focus point, these rays are parallel. This makes sense because these rays, you can, if they intersect the focal point, they should be parallel. So as you know, any rays parallel intersecting the mirror should converge at the focal plane, inside the focal plane, right? So the contrary is true. If your object is at the focal plane, the rays should emerge parallel. Okay, so your image in this case is just very far away at infinity. So let's see what happens when you cross the focal point and when you are in between the focal point and the center of the mirror. So suddenly your rays now, so they diverge. So you, for example, let's see, this one is going that way, and this one, another one not shown, would go that way. So they diverge, they do not intersect in the real world. But if you continue them, like this one, yes, from the center of curvature, it would just be reflected in the same way. So if you continue them in the virtual world, they intersect at this point. So you have a virtual image in that case, and it is not inverted. It is the same direction as the object, and it is larger than the object. And when you get closer to the mirror, it just gets closer also, and smaller. Alright, so let's see how we can understand all this. This slide just summarizes what we have seen for a concave mirror. The image depends on the position of the object relative to f. So when the object is between f and the mirror, you get a virtual image, non-inverted. When it is at the focal point, you get an image at infinity, a real image at infinity. Therefore you get parallel rays like this. So I equal plus infinity means the image is as at infinity, yeah? It's very far away. Yes. And in this case I is this, so this is the image distance to the mirror. And when your object is away from the focal point, you have a real image inverted in this way. Let's find out where the image is for a spherical mirror. So we are going to establish the spherical mirror formula. So we need to find I as the function of P and F. So F is a property of your mirror, P is where your object is, and what you want is I. Alright, so this is one situation. and you have P is distance from O to the mirror here, so it is OC, small c, and R is a radius of curvature, so C, small c, and I is the position of the image with respect to the mirror. Alright, so let's write some equations. So we use Gauss approximation, remember, small angles. So because of that, we can write this. So alpha is this. Actually, we could start with beta. Okay, let's start with beta. So this one is equal to this divided by CC. Okay, this is not an approximation, it is exact. Alright. AC divided by CC. So CC here is R. So it's AC, the piece of circle here, divided by R. So now let's look at alpha. Alpha, so because all these lines are very close to the central axis, alpha is very small. So you can take the approximation that alpha is equal also to AC divided by this distance, small co. Okay, and this is P. O small c is P. So you can write that. This is an approximation. You can also do the same approximation with gamma. Of course, this again is not to scale. All these angles are very small. So it's AC divided by IC. Okay, and IC is I. Okay, so now here we have P and I, okay, R also, but we have unknowns. We have alpha, beta, gamma that we do not know, and AC also that we do not know. So that's 4 unknowns. So, and these are 3 equations, so we need 2 more. No, 1 more. We need 1 more equation to solve this problem. So let's look at relations between the angles. First of all, let's look at the OIA triangle. No, let's look at OCA triangle. So we have alpha here, we have theta there, and so we can know what is this angle. Okay, and because if we know what is this angle, we know what is beta. Okay, so we can express beta as a function of alpha and theta, and we find beta equal alpha plus theta. So you can check that it works this way, and using exactly the same trick, but in this case using OIA, you can find that gamma is also equal to alpha, but plus this angle, so which is 2 theta. So actually here we have, when we had this equation, we had 1 more equation, but we added 1 more variable. So we needed an additional equation to solve. So now we do have 5 equations and 5 unknowns, so we can solve. So we can begin with these 2 equations and eliminate theta. In this case, we have this equation. And now we can just write alpha is here, gamma is here, and beta is there. So we just write this equation, but using this data. So AC divided by P plus AC divided by I equal to AC divided by R. The ACs will disappear, and you will have here 1 divided by P plus 1 divided by I equal, so the 2 in fact will disappear with this one, so this will give you 1 divided by F. Right. And this is the magic equation for spherical mirrors. So I call it the PIF formula because you just have ones at the numerator and you have PIF, so it makes a PIF. The PIF formula, so it's easy to remember. So one thing, be careful about the signs. Remember, for a plane mirror, we decided that I was going to be negative because it was a virtual image. So here, sometimes we have virtual images, sometimes we have real images. So how to deal with that? In fact, this will work for either for any kind of spherical mirrors, convex or concave. But you have to choose the right signs. And for a concave mirror, you have to write that R and F are positive. And if it is a convex mirror, you have to say that F is negative. So, all right. So these are the convention. But okay. So I try to figure out a way to remember that, which is not written in the book actually. So I find out that in fact points that are on the real side are taken positive. Like C is on the images are real on this side, on the left side, always. So in the case of mirrors. So if C is on the real side, which is the case for a concave mirror, then it should be counted positive. And things that are on the virtual side, so the right side of the mirror, are counted negative. Okay. So for a convex mirror, C is on the right side, also the virtual side. Therefore, we take it as a negative number. P is always positive, and I, you will calculate it, and it will turn positive, either positive or negative, depending on the situation. So it is interesting to check the formula with a plane mirror, because so this is the case of a plane mirror. So in fact, a plane mirror can be regarded as being a spherical mirror, but with a radius of curvature that is infinite. All right. So if we say that R is infinite in the PIF formula, it is the same as saying that F is at infinity. All right. So F is also infinity. So the PIF formula, so 1 divided by F will be equal to 0. Okay, which means I equal minus P. All right. So this is consistent. So we have seen that in general, the size of the image here is different from the size of the object. And also it might be inverted, like in this case, or non-inverted. So we define a variable to represent this fact. It's called the magnification, the lateral magnification M. So we compare the height of the image and the height of the object. So M is defined as just the ratio height of the image divided by height of the object. So and we define it such that the image, if the image is inverted, M will be negative. If the image is non-inverted, M is positive. Let's establish a formula for M as a function of I and P. So let's look at this situation, and let's look at the two right triangles. So ABC and DEC. They are similar in the sense that they have the same set of angles. So it's possible to write this. So DE divided by AB equal CD divided by CA. So this is one aspect of the so-called Thales theorem. So looking at this one, so the quantity on the left is M, in fact. And because in this case it is inverted, we write it as minus m. And on this side you have CD is I and CA is P. So you can write in fact that m equal minus I divided by P. So this is our definition of the magnification. So again, be careful the signs. I can be positive or negative. P is generally positive. But I can be generally positive or negative, and your m will be consequently positive or negative also. Let's look at an example. So we have here a tarantula. I have seen a real tarantula in Mexico. Okay, so it has height h, and it sits cautiously. I'm not sure if this is really important. Before a spherical mirror whose focal length has absolute value of f equal 40 centimeters. So we have f, but the absolute value. So we don't know if the mirror is convex or concave. So the image has the same orientation, and they give you this relationship. So this, in fact, gives you the magnification, absolute value, and it also actually gives you that the image has the same orientation as the object. Therefore, m is positive. So m equals 0.20 and positive. And because we know that m equal so m as an algebraic variable is equal to minus I over p, this gives us that I is negative. So 0 to p, and p positive. Alright, so we have a virtual image. So the first question was, is the image real or virtual? So it is virtual. Is it on the same side of the mirror as the tarantula, or the opposite side? So in fact, virtual images are always on the opposite side for this kind of mirrors. So it is opposite side. Then, is the mirror convex, concave, or convex, etc. So here we have to know the sign of f to answer this question. So we can use the PIF formula, because we have I as a function of p. So if we use this, we will have f as a function of p. So we calculate that, and we get f equal minus p over 4, and p is positive, therefore f is negative, and we have a convex mirror. This is a formula summary for mirrors. So plane mirrors and spherical mirrors. Object distances are usually represented as p, and they are positive as long as they are on the left side of the mirror. Images distances are represented by the symbol I, and if they are virtual, they are taken negative, and real images are taken positive. And for the plane mirror, you have I equal minus p. For spherical mirrors, you have the PIF formula, and this formula for the magnification, and don't forget that the focus point is at r divided by 2. So be careful the conventions. R and f are positive for a convex, for a concave mirror, and you can maybe remember that because C is on the real side, so usually the real side is positive, and negative for a convex mirror. So in that case, C is on the virtual side. Images may be located by drawing the following rays. So remember that these are conventional, are true for any kind of optical system. So try to use these instead of rays that are specific to a given system.